This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Baruchim Haba, and welcome everyone to a special edition of All Parsha on Parshas Emor, the Baal Haturim on Parshas Emor. For today's presentation, I'd like to share with you 12 amazing comments of the Baal Haturim on Parshas Emor. Baal Haturim begins by commenting on the juxtaposition of the end of Kedoshim with the beginning of Emor, namely the end of Kedoshim concludes discussing the subject of not seeking out the Oivi Yedaini, which were some kind of superstitious manners of foreseeing the future, which involved coming into contact with dead bodies and bones, and the beginning of Emor, which talks about the command to the Kohanim not to be contaminated. And the Baal Haturim offers three explanations for the juxtaposition. Number one, the command for the Kohanim not to be matame is juxtaposed to the command not to solicit the future from the oiv, because there too the Torah commands us, don't contaminate, don't be matame yourself to them. Or, we're telling the kohen, don't be matame to a dead body when you want to seek out the oiv, because as part of soliciting the oiv, you would have to contaminate yourself. So as part and parcel of warning the kohen not to contaminate himself is, and likewise in the process of seeking out the oivi yadoni. And finally, the Baal Haturim says that the reason for the juxtaposition is lest you say, well, if I can't seek out the oivi yadoni, how am I supposed to know the future? So that's why the Torah immediately juxtapositions positions the parsha of the kohanim, namely through the agent of the kohen, one can solicit the future through the Urim V'Tumim, and this explanation is found in the Medrash Tanchuma. Okay, now we move on to Parak Chaf Aleph, Pasuk Ches. V'kidashtai ki es lechem Elokecha hu makriv. That's one v'kidashtai. Kadosh yelach, two kedushas. Ki kadosh, three kedushas. Says the Baal Haturim, three kedushas in the pasuk is Meramis, the Gemara in Gittin Nun Testament Beis, of the three privileges the kohen receives. Number one, he always goes first, he speaks first. Number two, he will be Mevarech Berchas Hamazayin, he will lead the Zimun. And number three, he gets the first chelek of a karban or any item which is being divided. So that's the significance of the three words Kedusha that appear in this pasuk. We go to Parak Aleph pasuk Tes, the daughter of a kohen who is mezaneh. Now, what is this talking about? A kohen's daughter who is a married woman. So, whether she had eros into someone or she had nesuin, her punishment is with fire. Why fire? No other married woman gets such a punishment. Well, says the Baal Haturim, all the actions of the kohanim are be'esh. He's involved in the offering of karbanos, which are Ishei Elokecha, the fire offerings of God, and therefore, by her defiling the Kedusha of Kahuna, she's defiling the holy fires, therefore, she is punished with fire. Perhaps we could add that Kohanim's nature is to have a Eish of Kedusha, fire of Kedusha, a certain Zrizus, and therefore, she also is defiling that quality of the Kohanim, and her punishment is Be'esh. Offering number 4. It says V'ha-kohen ha-gadol, Parak Chaf Aleph Pasuk Yod. This is referring to the Kohen Gadol. It could have said V'ha-kohen Gadol. What's ha-gadol? It says Baal Haturim, Hey Gadol. These are 5 qualities that the Kohen Gadol excels in more than other Jews. This is mentioned in Medrash Rabbah, in Vayikra Rabbah, Parsha Chavav Ois Tes, as well as in Gemara Yuma Daf Yudches. He is Gadol Me'echav Benoi in his beauty, B'kayach in his strength, B'oisher in his wealth, B'chachma in wisdom, U'v'shanim, and in his seniority. Hey Gadol, in 5 ways he is Gadol. Offering number 5. The pasuk says, Parak Aleph, Parak Chaf Aleph, Pasuk Yud Aleph. So the pasuk says as follows, that Lilboish es habegadim. Parak Chaf Aleph, Pasuk Yud. Pasuk Yud. Lilboish es habegadim. Twice the word Lilboish appears in Tanakh. The Masoretic notes One pasuk says, Umilei es yadai lilbosh es habagadim. This is talking about the Kohen Gadol. And then in Bereshis Vayetze, V'nasan li lechem lechol ubeged lilbosh. Says the Haturim, this indicates that which Chazal darshan in Yuma Daf Yud Ches, that we have to make the Kohen Gadol independently wealthy, wealthier than anyone else. That once Milei es Yadai Lilbosh es Habagadim, once we inaugurate and coronate the Kohen Gadol, then we apply that which it says Lechem Lechol Beged Lilbosh. We give him wealth and we give him ashirus, we give him material possession. Okay, now we move on to Perek Chaf Aleph Pasuk Yud Aleph, and in this pasuk we encounter an amazing phenomenon. Two words, they both end with the same letter. The next two words, they also end with the same letter. Ve'al kol, both end in a lamed. Nafshois meis, they both end in a saf. Lo yavoy, they both end in an aleph. Le'aviv le'imai, they both end in a vav. Lo yitama, they both end in an aleph. Haloi davarhu, what an amazing phenomenon. Says the Haturim, this indicates the teaching of the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Daled, that we know a revius of dam renders someone tameh, but what if half a revius comes from one mess and another half a revius comes from another mess? Would that also engender tumah? Yes, that is alluded to from the fact that in this pasuk of tumas meis, each two words have the same ending, indicating that even if tumah is contributed by two sources, that also renders tameh. Okay, we move on to Perek Chaf Aleph pasuk Yud Gimel. Vehu isha v'vsuleha yikach, and he, a woman, when she's a basula, a virgin, he will take. Well, it says about the gematria of Vehu is 18. This is a remez to the teaching of Perkei Avos, Perkei Mishnah Chaf Aleph, to the ideal time for a Jew to get married, namely 18 years old. This is the pasuk that talks about marriage. Vehu, numerically valued at 18. Vav Hey, Vav is 6, Hey is 5, 11, plus Vav is 17, plus 1 is 18. This indicates that the ideal age for marriage is Vehu. And this is also Merumaz. Vehu kechasan yotze michupasai. The chasan is Vehu, he's 18 years old. Then we analyze the word bivsuleha in our 8th offering. Bivsuleha. It could say Vehu isha besula yikach. There's an extra vase, there's an extra yud. It should say Vehu isha besula yikach. What's vivsuleha? What's the extra base and the extra yud? Gematria 12. This indicates that for 12 years, a woman's besulim are completely shalem. That a woman, the Gemara says in Yevamos Daf Nun Tes, for the first 12 years, her signs of virginity are whole and shalem. Okay, Perek Chaf Aleph, Pasuk Chaf Beis. Perek Chaf Aleph, Pasuk Chaf Beis. This pasuk is talking about the various mumin that a kohen cannot have to do the avodah, and then the pasuk says, Lechem eloikav mikachei hakadashim umin hakadashim yochel. He could do the avodah, but even though he can't do the avodah, being a mum, having a blemish, however, he could eat truma. But this pasuk begins with a lamed, ends with a lamed, indicating a remez to that which it says in Bechoros, Perek Zayin, Mishnah Aleph through Mishnah Vav. There are 60 total mumin in the human gamut, so that's merumaz in this pasuk that talks about mumin, beginning and ending with the letter lamed. Lamed plus lamed is 60. Now we go on to our 10th offering, Perek Chaf Beis, Pasuk Lamed Beis. Chaf Beis, Lamed Beis. This is the pasuk that talks about the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, V'nikdashti b'toich b'nei Yisrael. And I will be sanctified among the Jewish people, from which the Gemara Brachos darshans on Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, Ein davar shebekdusha pachas me'asara. You cannot perform an act of sanctity, Kaddish, Kedusha, Kriyas HaTorah, Chazaras Hashatz, with less than 10 people. Where is this indicated? Aside from that which the Gemara says, it's Gzer Shava, Toich Toich, Eda Eda. We learn out Toich from the Ma'aseh Korach and the Meraglim. However, says the Haturim, the Gematria V'nikdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael is Zehu. This teaches us. This is the halacha. Ein oimrim kedusha b'pachas me'asa. We don't say a matter of holiness with less than 10 people. Okay, we move on to our final 2 offerings for today, and that is Perek Chaf Beis, Pasuk Chaf Dalid, the description of the Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah. Da'aber el b'nei Yisrael Emor, b'chodesh hashvi, in the 7th month, be'echel hachodesh, on the 1st day of the month, yeh lochem Shabboson, will be a day of rest, zichroin Trua mikra kodesh. And we know one pasuk says Yom Trua, one pasuk says zichroin Trua, and we have a drasha that when Rosh Hashanah comes out on Shabbos, it's zichroin Trua, we only remember the Trua, but we don't actually blow. But when it comes out during a week, it's a Yom Trua. Well, it says the Haturim, on Shabbos we don't blow because Kiyah Shofar is not Doicha Shabbos. It's only Zichron Trua. But the Gemara Rosh Hashanah says on Daf Chav Testament Beis, B'Mikdash in Sion we do blow Shofar on Shabbos. Says the Haturim, the pasuk in Yoel says Tiku Shofar B'Tzion, below the Shofar in Sion is Rashi Tevis Shabbos, indicating that in Sion we do blow the shofar on Shabbos. Well, here's the final offering for today on Parshas Emor. Says about Haturim, 3 times in Tanakh we have the word Zichron. The Masoretic note indicates there are 3 important occasions it says Zichron. Number 1, Zichron Trua. Another pasuk, Ein Zichron Larishanim. There's no memory for the early ones. And also in Koheles, Ki ein zichroin l'chacham imaksil. These 3 mentions of the word zichroin correspond to that which the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah teaches us on Daf Tezayin and Beis. On Rosh Hashanah, Shloisha Sfarim Niftachim. 3 books are open. Therefore, it says by 2 of the zichroins, ein zichroin. It says ein zichroin l'rishaynim. There's no memory for the early ones, and it also says Ki ein zichroin l'chacham. Because of the 3 books, only one of them will still be remembered. The Beinani, his book is opened, and we continue to evaluate and determine his situation until Yom Kippur. Beinonim tluyim v'oimdim. So this pasuk, Zichron Trua, is a reference to Beinonim. But the other 2 books of the Tzadikim and the Rishaim, they don't have any Zichron. We open the book and we close it. Tzadikim are nechtavim v'nechtamim la'alter l'chaim. Tzadikim are immediately written and sealed for life. They don't need to be remembered further. And Risham, the opposite, they are immediately written and sealed for death. So there is no zichron. So the pasuk ein zichron larishonim, that refers to the Risham. The Risham have no further zichron. They are signed and sealed for death immediately. As opposed to the tzadikim, they also have no further zichron. Ki ein zichron l'chacham. For the tzaddik, there is also no further zichron. So the 3 mentions of the word zichron and Tanakh refer to the Shloisha Sfarim Niftachim. This pasuk refers to the Beinani. He continues to be remembered until Yom Kippur. Zachu nechtavim l'chayim. Loi zachu. So then he does not have a good fate. But the other 2 are ein zichron. They're opened and they're sealed immediately. Here are 12 amazing thoughts from the Baal Haturim on Parshas Emor, being meramis to us various teachings of the Mishnah and the Gemara in the nuances of phraseology of the Psukim, how every detail and every nuance of Torah is so laden with meaning, conveying so many halachas and messages. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu illuminate our eyes to see all the great grandeur and wonder of the Torah HaKadoshah. Wishing everyone a wonderful week and a wonderful Parshas Emor. Haba Aleinu L'Taiva.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.